everybody, it's the Shy Genealogist again. I'm going to talk about more ways to amp up your family group sheet to help you stay organized in order to make more great discoveries about your ancestors. Last time I talked about things that you could do up here in the table that we've created. This time I want to talk a little bit about what we can do with this bottom half. Now I love having a blank half sheet of paper in front of me to write down notes as I'm going along, and sometimes it's meaningless stuff like a group of page numbers from the index in the back of the book so that I don't have to keep flipping back and forth, or it might be the call number of a library book that I want to go and find. Sometimes I write down hints of things or questions that pop into my mind. I write down all kinds of stuff. And when I finally get to the point of saying, all right, I need to organize these thoughts, it's nice to have this extra area in my group sheet that I can keep a nice, neat list of things. And the way that I do that is by using text boxes. So let's go back to this example of the Eli Gilpin group sheet. After a period of time of writing all over the bottom of my paper, I decided that I wanted to keep some notes permanently on the bottom of this sheet. So you can see that I've added some text boxes to include a timeline and some thoughts about what I was focusing on proving at that point in my research. So let's talk about how to add a text box to a Word document. To add a text box, I'm going to come to my Insert tab up at the top. And what do I want to insert? I want to insert a text box. Now Word has several pre-built text boxes. For this circumstance, I'm just going to draw my own. And I can make this whatever size that I want, depending on what purpose I want to use this box for. So let's say that I'm going to put up a timeline. I just want to keep track of the different counties, perhaps, as I follow the census records through the year, so I know where I need to be focusing my search for certain periods of time. So I draw my text box and my cursor is ready to go. I've got all the formatting that is typically available within a Word document. I'm going to come to the Home tab, and I've decided that I want to put some bullets in here. And maybe I'm going to make a timeline, so I put my title there. And I'm going to add some bullets. Now when I click on the bullets, it's going to kind of push everything over to the right a little bit. And I want to use every bit of space that I can, so I can slide things around using the ruler at the top, or I can come up again in the Home tab and I can push this button here that says decrease that indent. I don't want that over so far, and it pushes everything back, and that seems to work pretty well. So now I can start my list of the census years and where I'm finding them in the census. But I notice that when I hit the Enter button, it puts a lot of space in there, and if I'm trying to cram a lot of information into a little bit of space, I don't want that to be quite so much space between my lines. So to change that, I'm going to highlight these areas where the bullets are, and I'm going to come up here in the paragraph section of the ribbon. I'm going to click the down arrow and I'm going to tell it I want it to be single spaced. That still leaves a little bit of a gap, so if you'll notice here in the list there's one more option to remove the space after the paragraph. And sometimes that'll be remove the space before the paragraph. It's just something to play around with. And if you decide that you want a little bit of space but not as much as they give you, you can tell it to show you the line spacing options, and here you can decide how much space before the bullet or after the bullet. And you've got a lot of choices here. It would be interesting to play around with that if you're looking for a very specific look. So now I've got plenty of space to make my list, and I could go through, I could include state censuses, I could include every time a child was born, if I know the location where they were born. There are lots of ways that I could use this box. Some of the ways that you might want to use this box in addition to the timeline might be just specifically to keep track of which census records you have found. Maybe you want to include a list of grandchildren because they didn't fit up in the top half of the form. Maybe you're keeping a list of library book call numbers so that you don't have to look them up every time you go to the library. Perhaps your ancestor was known by various names. Sometimes it was Charles and sometimes it was Carl. maybe different ways of spelling the name. If you have a list of DNA matches, you might want to include that. If you've used some color coding in your chart up at the top, you could have your key for your colors, and you can include a to-do list. So we've still got space over here on the left-hand side. We might want to include even more text boxes. Looking back here at my Carl Schmidt group sheet, I can see that I have a box for notes. Just different tidbits that I come across as I'm doing my research. This would be all the little hints that I'm writing to myself on my paper as I'm doing my research. You might have one large box, or you might have different size boxes fit together like a puzzle. And some other uses for these text boxes might be questions that you're trying to answer, theories that you're trying to prove, URLs for websites that have given you great information or you want to come back and look at, contact information for fellow researchers that you know, or conversation notes if you're talking with someone or emailing back and forth. These kind of text boxes are a great way of keeping track of that. As a genealogist, I know that keeping my information organized is often half the battle in my research, so I hope that learning how to use text boxes can help you to amp up your group sheet.